If you like this video, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit the notification bell icon to get the latest updates.
Good morning, guys. This is Jay here. I have basically working in SAP Security and GRC space for more than 12 years now, and I have recently, I have got skills on Fury, HANA, S4 migration, multiple rollout projects, and enhancements, transitions, implementations, and GRC implementation, as well as hands-on experience on the SAP BTP side. So as well as I have got onshore experience. I have traveled multiple places for go lives, and I have got experience in ECC, GRC, Access Control, HANA 2.0, SAP Fury 3.0, Page and Space, BI, BW side authorization, solution manager, and CUA and scripting exposure. And I have done estimations for projects, received multiple appreciations from client, and demonstrated my skills in SAP GRC area and other security area. Okay, so this is my kind of brief introduction. Please call me Jay. Nobody, please don't call me sir or something anything else. So, and as well as in the sessions, if you have any questions anywhere, just stop me, raise your hand, or stop me right away, ask the question, and we can solve your query and move forward. And as well as if you have something to ask later, next day or while end of that particular topic as well, you can ask the questions. Okay. So this will be our first topic, introduction to SAP. Okay, please read through this disclaimer. This presentation images and references provided are for information purpose. Please do not copy. It is protected by copyright laws. Do not recreate or share this material unless and until you have explicit permission to do so. And do not try to copy from here and create another. Okay. All right. So the agenda for this topic is what is SAP, key features, and brief introduction to SAP GRC Access Control. Okay, so I see most of the participants are already having the hands-on experience in SAP. So we'll try to just reiterate. So as you all might know, SAP stands for Systems, Applications, and Products in Data Processing. So it was founded in 1972. A group of people started this company, and they have a vision to create a ERP software where all the modules are integrated with each other, and any business, any full-fledged business, whatever activities or whatever modules they have, everything is available in the one software. Okay, so that kind of software is called as ERP, Enterprise Resource Planner, and SAP is a leading software provider in ERP space. And then they have many more products, specialized areas like GRC is the one we'll be discussing more on that. Let's move ahead. So key features, as you know, the tech giants, they need to use a sophisticated software because they don't want their departments to work in silo. Like finance department doing a finance planning, and they don't have a coordination with material management, how many stock they have, or what kind of supply chain is happening, where are all the activities happening. And then if they use separate softwares, then there is a lot of manual activities or a lot of integration that needs to happen, and then the coordination is not that great, and then they cannot make full use of the software capabilities that are available nowadays. So that is where the ERP softwares are very important, since they provide all the modules in the software itself, and they are integrated. So that is where they can make use of those capabilities and enhance their business, and basically do the better predictions or do the better planning, and integrate their business, and that is helpful for them. So that is where SAP is one of the leading software, and it is widely used in we can say if you look at the Fortune 100 countries or Fortune 500 companies, I would say 80-90% of them might be using SAP. So And I see many people join from DuPont project. So DuPont is definitely one of the Fortune 100 companies. So they must be using SAP, and any other projects you called out. So I don't recall the names, but yeah, they must be the big organizations in their respective domains. Okay. Okay. So let's move ahead. Yeah. So on SAP side, anyone? I don't think anyone will have any questions since you already have the hands-on experience. So we can start with the access control, the GRC. Okay. So GRC basically SAP has a separate product which is SAP Governance, Risk and Compliance (GRC). And in GRC, we will be discussing on access control. So there are multiple modules in the GRC. Access control is one of them. There is a process control. There is a risk management, and there is a fraud detection and GTS for global trades. So our focus will be basically on access control because that is also a huge module in itself. And rest of the modules, like I hear somebody was saying they are looking for process control, and then they are also a big topics. They basically there are less people who are actually working on the process control, and less client also. Not everyone is process control and um, risk management, but access control is widely used, and it has a very good capabilities to monitor, test, and enforce the access and authorization and the compliance policies that the organization has. So we will deep dive more onto the access control. Okay. The slides are visible good, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. So yeah. So access control has mainly these 5 modules. Okay. So previously in previous versions, if you Google around, you might see ARA is called something else. But yeah, these are the latest nomenclature that SAP has. So access risk analysis is where you basically go and do a risk analysis. And we will talk on all this topic. What is a risk, how it is defined, what is rule set, and all those things when we come to the modules. But on a high level, a risk is basically a threat to organization. So let's say if somebody has wider access or access that they didn't need not to have, they don't need to do anything with that access, and still they have access, and they can do a fraudulent transaction, or they can, because of lack of knowledge, they can go and do something wrong, and then the organization has to suffer. There is a damage to reputation, or there is a financial loss. So those kind of activities are called as a potential threat and a risk to the organization. So with ARA module, basically you can go and figure out what are the access risks available in the particular user authorizations or roles, and all those are covered in the ARA. And then all these modules are integrated with one another. So if you once you define any risk to an organization, the same risk is available in EAM. So emergency access management, yeah, that roles and users and authorizations you defined in one area, that is available to the second area. Okay. So EAM, emergency access management. So like we discussed, we cannot have wider access to somebody. And then let's say there is a real business scenario where you have to skip some in between steps, or you have to make some changes directly into a particular, let's say, order. For example, there is an order, and then there is a business process. If you have to edit the order that is already in the system, let's say you need to take 5 people approval. Okay, this is the business process. And then what our authorization management team will do, they will not allow anyone to directly change the order. Okay. And if somebody has the access, that is called out as a risk in access risk analysis. So if let's say user 1 has access to directly edit the order in the system, then he might skip all the 5 approval stages there and directly go and make the changes. Like he can change the order value, whatever was proposed, and now he is updating that to another value. That is a risk to organization. Okay. But in real time scenario, if there is a genuine case where, yeah, this needs to happen, there is an emergency and they need to make the changes, they cannot wait for 5 approvals, it is approved from business side, then the emergency access management come into picture. So here this is basically called as firefighting. So you don't have the wider access, but you have a user account assigned to you, which has the wider access. And you can use that user account to log in into system, do the changes, absolute necessary changes that are pre-approved, set of transactions, no more funny transactions. Whatever is approved, that thing is documented, and whatever you do in system, the logs are generated. So if somebody says I'm going to change order and he logs into system, approver will receive a log when he is out of the system, what all steps he did. And if approver find out, okay, why did you do this extra step, which is not part of the pre-approved activity, then the person who executed the firefighter access or emergency access basically has to go and update the logs. So by doing this, any breach in the process or any breach in the defined process, it is well documented. So when auditor comes into picture and when they audit the things, okay, this order, I see this order was directly changed. It is not followed that 5 people approval process. What was the reason and what are the documents? So this is where the automation of emergency access management, it store all the logs, what was done and all the approvals. So the reviewer had performed a review that what activities you performed with the wider access. So all those activities are called as firefighting, and the module is EAM. Okay. Next module is BRM, business role management. So in GRC, basically we can do the role management as well to connected system, as well as there are business roles. So there are business role concept where you can create a role in GRC, which is not a real role as such in connected system. So let's say you have a S4 system or you have a ECC system where the actual business transactions are happening, and it is connected to your GRC system. There is another standalone GRC system. And in GRC system, you can create a business role, which is like, let's say security team as a business role. And it can have like familiar names, like security team is a pretty much familiar and a descriptive name. Okay, this role looks for a security team. And in real systems, you will basically have something Z underscore security underscore IT underscore something like that. It will be a technical name. So as an end user, the end user, they basically won't understand what this thing is. What is Z? Why they have colon? Why they have underscore? What is IT? So for them to go and request their access and expedite the provisioning, the business role concept is there. So you can have a GRC simplified business role name like supply chain coordinator, for an example. So somebody who is actually doing that position or fulfilling that position, it is very easy for him to understand. Yeah, supply chain coordinator, procurement team. This is something I can relate myself with and go ahead and request that access. And then that business role is connected to multiple system. It can be GRC, it can be S4, it can be SRM, CRM, wherever that particular position is needed to have access. And then once that one business role is provisioned, automatically the user account is set up is all the related respective systems. Okay, so we'll touch base on BRM, how business roles are created, how we can maintain the roles, how we can have nomenclature for business roles themselves or any other roles that we want to create. Like if you go in system and you start creating anything like test role, the system is not going to stop you from creating that. If you go in S4 and create that role, yeah, it will happen. But if you enforce BRM from GRC, you can ensure that a certain nomenclature is followed. So there is configuration parameters, what is process, sub-process, and with that basically you can enforce. Yeah, this is how my role name will appear, and everyone needs to stick to that role name. So that kind of enforcements can be done from BRM. This module is not that much widely used in organizations. Usually the role management happens in respective systems, and once the roles are available in production, they are imported in BRM and then further used for provisioning purpose. So whatever roles are there in BRM, they are used in ARA. You can do the access risk analysis on those roles. Let's say the procurement manager. Does it have any risk, this particular role? You can go to ARA, do the risk analysis on the role that is available in BRM, and you can use the roles available in BRM to actually go ahead and request. So if a new person joins and he is a procurement manager, he can go ahead and raise a request in access request management module. Okay, he can request the procurement manager, which role is basically created in BRM. And the access request management is also integrated with ARA. So when the request is submitted, the risk analysis will happen in the request, and it will show you, okay, by adding or by topping up this role or by creating this user with this role, is it having any threats or any risk to the organization? And if yes, then they can decide the workflow. So basically all the approvals, again, from audit perspective, the GRC system is there for compliance. So if you gave somebody this access, who approved the access, and all the approvals and everything is captured into the respective request. Okay. So ARM, EAM, ARA, they are integrated, BRM, all four modules. Then another module is user access review. So this is something when let's say the users are set up, and in the organization there are promotions, there are department changes, somebody working at one site gets migrated to another site, or the person is sent into the different department. Okay, so what happens usually, the person will raise the new request. He might go and put a support ticket that I need access to so and so T codes, and then nobody questions, okay, what about your current access? So you got transferred to another department. Let's say you are part of finance department, and now you went to the supply chain. So you will go and request the access to a new set of transactions, but nobody questions what needs to happen with your finance access. So there is an automated process, the GRC UAR configuration, which will trigger based on a certain timeline, whatever way you configured, and you can choose to decide, okay, who receives the workflow. So let's say user manager will receive the workflow and they can do the review. Yeah, this person has got, let's say, a role from finance and a role from supply chain. Yeah, so new manager decides, oh no, he don't need to have a finance access anymore. He is not part of finance department. Let's remove this access. Let's flag this for removal, and then accordingly, either automatic workflow can remove, or it can come to security for their review and removal of this risk or this access. So these are basically 5 broad level modules, which we will deep dive more, how to configure them, and we will see into the system, raising the request, seeing how it goes to the workflow, and likewise. Okay. So any questions here till now? Okay, we'll move ahead. Okay. So governance plays a crucial role in organization. As we discussed, we don't want departments to work in silo, like one department having a separate policy. Let's take an example, DuPont, for an example. It is a big organization. Let's say DuPont operates in USA, DuPont operates in India, right? And any multiple countries. So if US DuPont decides, okay, I need to have this particular policy to um, my my company wise changes. Okay, I decide this policy that any changes or any execution of this transaction is restricted, and then they basically have to communicate same to all other departments, and then they have to ensure that is communicated to multiple entities in different countries, and then that is a headache for them, right? If you don't have a central system where all the policies, where all the compliance is structured, it will be difficult for them to coordinate with multiple organizations, sub companies, or multiple departments on those activities. So that is where GRC is very helpful. Like taking help for process control and more, you can actually deploy the country wise or your company wise policies, the testing mechanisms, the policies that are set up. Okay, are they really effective? Like I set up a policy that nobody joins 2 minutes late after this call. Okay, let's say this is a policy, but how to test that policy? Are actually people joining within first 2 minutes of the call or not? So just making the policy is not of use. Okay, we have to do some testing, we have to do the evidence. Yeah, for an example, yeah, this is the attendance log, everyone joins right after the call started or 5 minutes before the call. So that is how the compliance is. You need to make the policies and ensure they are followed. Okay, So that is why GRC system is there. It is to identify any threats to the organization, and with help of process control and other modules, it can also be documented and tested whether it is actually happening into the system or not. Okay. So what is a risk? Like we discussed some time back, a risk is any unfavorable consequence, any potential threat to the organization. It can be a threat to the reputation of organization. It can be a threat like the information, let's say any personal information, credit card information. If any company is storing credit card information, health records. So if somebody has access to that and they take out the dump of that data and sell it to the third party organizations. Okay, these are the people with credit card. And then there are people who want to buy that data or who can misuse that data. And then that is why government has the policies to ensure if you have such data, it is safeguarded and protected. So any access or any risk, basically, if somebody who should not have access to any credit card information, and then he has, let's say, he can able to see the credit card information of people, he can go and see the card numbers. That is a risk. He can misuse that data. So that potential threat, uh, which can be any operational, like you can disturb the company operations by incorrectly capturing some data or changing the existing data, or it can have vulnerabilities in terms of financial risk. There is a loss to organization. All those basically threats are called as risks in term. Okay. And these are basically internal risk when you have the access. Like we will be discussing on that area where a person is onboarded by the company and they are okay to have him access. That is where access control comes in. And then there are external threats like cyber security. Your password is broken, and the external attacks where the hackers will try to breach into the system and try to get the data. So that is handled by cyber security. Okay. So those risks basically is where SAP will provide the best practices, the important notes to ensure the safety of the security. And then there are network teams, and then there are um, all other different kind of devices to keep the IT infrastructure safe. But when you let somebody into the system, you allow him to have the access to system, and inside system what he can do, that is also a risk. And that risk management, basically security team will take care of deploying the security structure for the system and ensure there are no risk into the user access, or if there are approved risk, accepted risk by business, there are mitigations. And we'll talk what is a mitigation, what is a remediation, we'll talk on that. But if something is accepted by business, yeah, I want this person to have this critical access, or this segregation of duty access, then they have some checks to ensure that is not misused. Okay. So risk basically fall into these five basic categories: a performance or operational risk, a compliance risk, IT risk, financial risk, and reputational risk. So like we talked, performance or operational risk is by doing something wrong, the company operations are stopped or the performance is impacted. Okay. Compliance risk is a defined set of policies, a breach to that policies, right? IT risk is any organizational risk where the threats or attacks are happening. Basically, the infrastructure is not safe. Third party are trying to break into the system. Financial risk is basically if something uh, something wrong did into the system causes a financial loss to the organization. And reputational risk is something where the organization reputation is at risk. So, for example, uh, let's say we have our bank accounts in let's say XYZ bank, and then the bank data is stolen. Okay, so our personal information is stolen, and then that bank reputation is damaged. So any other any other person or any other organization will think twice before uh, working with that organization, uh, like opening the account, let's say we see some banks, they have, let's say, fraudulent loans assigned. Then people will think twice, okay, should I put my money into this bank or not? So that is a reputational risk, the damage to reputation. So compliance is basically, as we discussed, there are laws, there is a policy, there are policies defined, and they ensure that organization follows that policy, and the practice or the rule-based practices are happening, and the risks are prevented. So that is where the compliance comes into picture. Okay. All right. So this will be the end of introduction topic to GRC and SAP. Let me know if any questions here. Okay, I'll take that as no questions. Let's do a quick attendance check. Narendra, did you join? Ketan? Sonal Mane? Okay. You guys hear me fine, right? Hello?
Yes,
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, and guys, please make this session interactive. I know this is just the initial screens, but I expect questions and things when actually we deep dive into GRC and in a technical area. But yeah, do stop me and ask the questions if anywhere. Okay, let's start with the topic 2, security administration. Okay. Yeah, as we discussed some time back, these are the disclaimer and laws. Please read through them and think twice before using this material anywhere else. Okay, strictly use this for training purpose and do not reproduce and share this material. Okay, agenda for this subtopic: security administration, key concept in securities, authorization, segregation of duty, user provisioning, role-based access control, and access request and approval. So security administration. So administration play a crucial role to ensure that policies that are defined and integration and integrity and confidentiality of the organization data and resource. So we just discussed the example like the critical data. If somebody downloads or misuse the data, if somebody should not have access to a particular information, that they are able to go and see that particular data, that is all risk to the organization. And the access control is basically give the access, the bare minimum access that is required to perform their duties. Okay, so that is the principle of access control. We do not give any wider access to anyone, just give the access that is absolute necessary to perform the duties. So primary objective of doing all this exercise is to prevent any unauthorized access, misuse, and data breaches. So that is why the security, basically the purpose of security team is. Otherwise, everyone can have a wider access as they wish, and they can do their duties. But then there is a high risk to organization that somebody will do some wrong transactions, some wrong activities, and put the organization at risk. Okay, so by enforcing the strict controls and implementing the robust security mechanism, organization basically they safeguard their systems from potential threats and vulnerability. Okay. Key concepts in security administration. So first, yeah. So key concepts in security administration: authorization. So authorization is very important. Basically, we allow somebody to have access to, when we identified, yeah, this person needs to have access to system, then authorizations come into picture. So what authorizations? are assigned to that person. So then like we create the SAP roles and then us allocate the transactions, Fury applications into those particular roles. So those are the authorizations that are assigned to a particular user. Okay. When you do the authorizations, basically the segregation of duty comes into picture. So um, is anyone familiar, like a lot of people working on already on GRC projects? So would anyone like to explain what is the segregation of duty risk? Anyone would like to explain this? Okay. So segregation of duty is basically there are some compliance rules that are defined where um, if somebody has a set of transactions, a set of authorizations from different domains or different areas, then there is a risk to organization. So for example, excuse me, if somebody has access to, let's say, create an order. Okay, if somebody can go and put an order to a vendor. Okay, let's say I go to let's say my supplier is Dell, for example, and our organization, if I am the person who can put the orders to Dell, okay, I need 10 laptops for an example. And if the same person has access to receive the materials, if I can go and mark that, yeah, I received 10 laptops from Dell. Okay, and I have another access, make the payment to Dell. So I can basically do this fraud transactions. I can let's say I have to actually order 10 laptops. I put a order for 12, I approve, and I do a goods receipt. Yeah, I received 12 laptop. On paper I received 10 laptop, and with help of another third party I can make some fraud. And then actually when audit happens, people will come to know, okay, we have two missing laptops. Where are they? So the segregation of duties, like, okay, one person, in this case, one person who is able to put the order, he cannot do the goods receivable. He cannot say, yeah, I received that particular service or I received that particular material that I ordered or the goods that I ordered. And if somebody who is able to receive the material should not be able to process the payment. Okay. Or if somebody who is able to maintain the customer account, let's say, okay, which account will be there for to make the payments of those laptop. So if somebody can maintain those accounts, he should not be able to make the payment. Okay, I basically cannot go and maintain. Let's put my friend's name as Dell's account, make the payment, and then revert back to original account. And then when the financial reconciliation happen, that time Dell will say, you do not remit this payment to me, and organization will say, I already did. And then they figure out, okay, it went to some other third party bank, right? So that is basically in simpler term, that is a segregation of duty risk. So they have defined some rules, and it changes with the business. Some business might accept this risk. Yeah, I agree, this is a segregation of duty risk, but my department needs to have this access, and they will accept those risks. And some organizations will say, no, this is absolute no for my organization. I cannot allow this access, this particular set of access to one person. So segregation of duties, so that is where SAP do provide us initial rule set. Okay, based on the system that we are using. So HR, they have multiple rule sets already available based on the standard practices. So you can use those set of rules. So we don't have to start from scratch, um, talking to different functions and department. What do you call, what is your risk? What do you categorize as risk? So SAP has predefined provided as the rule set. All we need to do is activate or download that and check it with the functions and departments, and figure out what are the absolute critical high risk segregation of duty accesses that they have, and make the amendments to the rule set that is provided. So we'll check on that, how to configure rule set, what are the function risk, all those things we will check. But basically, um, the authorization is granted and we ensure the SOD access is not provided. We'll try to limit this. Okay. Then the next step is user provisioning. So once you have the role created, once you figure out, okay, this role should not have these two conflicting transactions in it, then comes into picture how to assign that role. And then user provisioning, if you don't have the GRC system, At this moment, it could be a third-party application somewhere, let's say, for example, ServiceNow or any homegrown application, IT application, where manager goes and approve the ticket that is submitted. Let's say I need access to XYZ transaction, and then the manager goes or the person goes and approves that ticket, and it comes to security, or just directly it comes to security queue. I need access to XYZ code, and then security team needs to do all the manual activities, identify a role from authorizations, which role provide this access, and then do either a manual check whether it is causing any risk to the existing access that user has, and then send it to the particular approver. Okay, please approve this role for this person, and then the user provisioning happen. And all these activities needs to be documented as audit proof that the access is approved. We are not granting access based on any random request that I need, let's say, payment processing access, and hey, you are not from finance department, why do you need this? So those kind of check needs to happen here in user provisioning. Otherwise, there is no point creating the authorizations, having them properly segregated into the roles, and then just assigning the roles like randomly. Anyone says I need this access, okay, have this role. So this is also important part in user provisioning. Role-based access control is where we discuss the authorization, like we spoke. User, okay, I am from security team, and if I go and say I need a developer access, so this is where a role-based access check happens. Oh, but no, you are not from development team. Why do you need that access? Okay, what is the business case scenario? Why don't you work with a development team and get that thing done? You cannot do this thing. So that is where the role-based access control comes into picture. And the last one is access request approval. So all these activities basically automatically performed by system. The authorizations are synced into GRC. Segregation of duty checks are performed. User provisioning is happening with the workflow. Role-based access control is where the role owners and approvers accept or reject the request, even if manager says, yeah, my person needs the access. And access approval, access request and approval happens into the GRC. So all these 5 stages, GRC can automate them. Okay, so we discuss all these activities. Let's just quickly have a glance at the slides, what they call. So access, granting or revoking the individual roles and responsibility, defining the roles, appropriate authorization level. Yeah, one thing we did not discuss is in the authorizations, let's say you define a role, let's say payment processor, or let's say supply chain coordinator, and you have multiple multiple plants or multiple regions where your company is operating. So somebody who is working at site A or plant A should not have access. Like, he can have a set of authorizations. Let's say these are the 10 transactions that we allow for a supply chain coordinator, but they are allowed only for his particular plant, his particular company code, his particular sales organization, and he cannot do all these string transaction in another plant. He cannot go and start seeing the data, what is happening in other plant, or he cannot go and maintain, let me help my friend and do this work or this transaction on his behalf. So that is another part of authorization. So you basically have the set of transactions and you have that access on a particular organizational structure, the plant, the company code, the sales organization, purchasing organization, and all other authorization objects, basically, which control this organizational structure. So that is also part of authorization. Okay. SOD, as we discussed, the conflict of interest. Do not have the conflicting access into user. Okay. No single user has ability to execute action that could lead to unauthorized activities or fraud transaction. Okay. So in segregation, these are the segregation of duty risk, and then there are another critical risks. So like, just take an example, opening the client. Okay. So opening a client is itself a critical access, and organization might say, I don't want this access even with basis team. Why should they open a client? That is not our day-to-day requirement. If they have to open a client, they can use the firefighter and open the client, and then there will be logs. So that kind of access is called as a critical access. And SAP and GRC has a functionality where you can identify the segregation of duty, where two functions or two transactions create a risk, and then there are critical risk where the function or activity itself is a risk, like opening a client. That is a risk activity. So from security terms, we can say role change. So nobody should do a direct role change in production. So anyone having change access in PFCG is a risk. Let's say it's a critical access, and we don't want anyone to have that access. If your user provisioning is automated, nobody should have access to change a user because you don't need to. The GRC system will change the user. He will set the password. He will assign the role. He will send the password to user. The security team should not have SU01 change access. If this is a policy, it can be categorized as a critical action or critical action risk. And then if actually somebody has the access, the GRC system will show, hey, this particular user has this access. So we'll check on that when we deep dive further into the respective modules. User provisioning, creating, modifying, disabling the user account. Okay, in user provisioning, another important aspect is onboarding, offboarding. Like, if somebody is left the organization, terminated, there will be some policies. Okay, if somebody is terminated, you have 24 hours, 7 days, 15 days. It varies on the organization policy. In how many days the particular user account has to be terminated. So the organization does not want to take a risk that I have a user account of a person who already left the company, and somebody reset the password or misuse that user account, or try to target to hack into the user account with in the company system with the help of the user account that person left. Okay, so that is where in user provisioning the automatic provisioning or deprovisioning comes into picture. So at the time is of essence. So if somebody has left the organization and the policy says in 7 days his account has to be terminated in all the systems, that is where again GRC comes into picture. You can do some automation. You can fetch that data from, let's say there is a report sent or there is a request submitted by somebody, and then let's say security team takes care of doing the deprovisioning, or you basically work with the third party software where report is, let's say, sent in a particular format, and you develop a program where GRC will understand that report and automatically submit the termination request. So that can also happen. So that is part of user provisioning, assigning the access as well as revoking the access. Access request and approval. So who approve the request, what roles are approved. Like, let's take an example. You send somebody that I need access to XYZ tree code, and the manager or owner says, yeah, approved. But then it does not tell you which role is approved. Uh, You have to be specific. This particular role is approved. This is approved from this date to that date if it is a temporary access. So all those access request and approval workflow happens through workflow, and everything is captured into the system. So later, whenever you want to finalize or whenever you want to figure out, okay, who gave this access, which was the request number, who reviewed and approved the request, everything, all the logs are there into the system. Yeah, with this we basically end the topic 2. Any questions on this particular topic?
Yeah, hi Jay. Subhash here.
Yes.
So regarding the SODs, going forward, we are going to see the rule set and how they are implementing there, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. No
It will be part of here. Let me go and show you the code. Yeah. So when we start with when we start from here, the access risk analysis. Okay, this is where you will see in the configuration risk analysis rule set. We can see the rule set. So what SAP has provided, and we can discuss what kind of modifications are there, how to activate or how to create your custom rule set. We can discuss here.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Yes.
Sure. Okay. Okay. Any other question? So we can start with the SAP architecture topic. On attendance side quickly, Narendra, Ketan, Sonal, did anyone join? Okay, so I will mark them as absent. I don't think they will join today. Just a second. Okay, so the next topic is SAP architecture. Okay, please read through this. Okay. So agenda for this particular module is the architecture R2, R3, and what is a three-tier architecture. We will discuss on that. What is a client in SAP? What is client dependent and independent tables or activities? And what are the SAP delivered clients? And the landscape. What is the SAP landscape? Okay. So so as you might know, when SAP was formed, they started with R1 and it was basically a material management model. But actually when the R2 was released, that is where it was a full-fledged ERP solution. And R2 basically stands for two-tier architecture. And then later they came up with R3 where we have the three-tier architecture. So for any software, basically, there are three important layers. One is presentation layer. So presentation is like where actual the GUI part where the interaction happens, and this can be anything. Like this can be nowadays you can operate. You don't even need to have SAP GUI installed. You can do all the things in Fury. So your web browser or your mobile phone can be a presentation layer where you basically interact with the system. And the presentation layer is separated from application layer. And application layer is basically where your core functionality and the business logic is. So we can say basically the SAP application, that is where they have put their code, they have designed the transactions, they have designed the functionalities, they have designed the logic of all the things like multiple modules, how data will flow from one department, one module to another module, and their business logic basically stays into application. So this is a second tier, okay. And as you know, the data that is created, it has to be stored in a database. Somewhere it should go. And then the third tier is your database. So for any software, these three tiers are important. And when SAP started, they started with a mainframe structure. So mainframe is like you have a very heavy server, which is your basically application and database. So both these tiers are deployed onto one server. So let's say in a older days, let's say you have a big server, a mainframe server somewhere sitting into your server room. You have your application code, what your SAP designed, and your database. It is sitting onto the one physical server. And if something goes wrong with database, your application, basically you cannot work here. Your application is down and you cannot connect to the SAP. Okay, so that is two-tier architecture. And in a simple term, let's say this is your web browser or this is your SAP GUI, and this is your SAP installation along with database. So that is how the two-tier architecture is. And this is where basically everyone will connect to that one server. Okay, so they don't have anywhere else place to go. They just go to here. This, let's say this is one server, you have IP address and all the details with you. Everyone just comes to and connect to them. If this requester submit 10 requests, all 10 requests is going to come here. If this guy submits 5 requests, they are going to come here. Okay, so there is no queuing mechanism, nothing. Everything comes here, and this is one server where all the big hardware is there. It has a RAM, it has a memory, storage, everything. Database is here, application code is running here, and it is catering for everyone's request. So that is two-tier architecture. Okay. So in R2, basically it is a basic network between client and server. Okay, so what is a client? Our presentation server, our SAP GUI or our browser is basically a client, and a server structure is where one big server is deployed. It has application, it has database, and then everyone, all the clients connect to that server. Okay, and the drawback is scalability. As we discussed, everyone will send the request to one server, and then if that server is overloaded, then let's say if this person submits 10 transactions or 10 requests here, and if this database or this server is not able to cater, some might time out. Okay, some might not work, it might time out. They don't have a queuing mechanism, they don't have a smart logic in between. So everyone just send their request here, and if there are too many requests to handle, the server might crash, data might crash, it might need a restart, it might hang, right? So scalability is the problem. And back in 1979, when R2 came, it was basically how the infrastructure was available, right? With the limitation of RAM, limitation of hardware, they used to have the server, big servers. Now we have the latest technology. We have the hardware basically easily available, and you can, let's say, size of the hardware. Like previously, it was a big server. You need to have a big server room. Now all those things are size-wise, price-wise, they are reduced. The infrastructure quality or the network quality has improved. Then the speeds or the transaction speeds are improved. The way you can process the data, it is much better. And with that, they came up with the R3. Okay, so on R2, it is a client server. So client will send a request to a server, and server will send the response basically. So let's say from DB client, basically you say, okay, show me the last month orders, what all orders were executed. So it will go to server, and server will process, because application and database is here. So it will process and it will send you back the data, and then it is visible to you. Okay, these are the last month orders, for an example. Okay. So presentation is client, and application and database is a server. Okay, this is two-tier. So disadvantage, DB client is installed on server side. This should not be client, on server. Okay, and the processing is taking place, and then there are no buffers and frequently access content. So there is no caching basically. So all the advanced features like frequently access data, the server doesn't know which client is sending which request, and it is basically a simple structure where the request comes and server will process the request. So there is no queue mechanism to handle requests. There is no caching or any other benefits, because they don't have that smart logic. Who is sending me request? How frequent data is accessed? So it was a basic infrastructure, R2. Each request is processed by communicating with the server. Okay. Client interface to communicate with the server, basically the R2. So this is where application server stays onto the server side. Okay. Servers are heavily loaded as we discussed, because everyone is sending the traffic to one server. Then performance will be impacted. So these are all the basically what we can say a drawback of R2, or what are the benefits by over benefits of R3 over R2. Okay, so R3. So R3 is basically the three tiers we discuss. They are deployed on three different server. Okay, so server number one, three different servers. Server number one is basically the presentation layer like SAP GUI or a web browser. So that is something that, for example, we are working on tier one, the presentation one, where we basically just have a web browser or SAP GUI. We don't have any big hardware at our end. We just have a simple hardware which will support the sending the request and receiving the response. Okay. The second one is, let me go to the diagram. Yeah, here. Okay, so presentation layer provides the graphical screen to user. User enters the data on the screen and the process data is shown to user. The simple one. This is our presentation layer. It can be a web browser, it can be SAP GUI, or it can be anything else. It can be a mobile phone, for example. Okay. Application layer. Now in R2, these two were combined onto one physical server. There was a database and there was an application on one server. With R3, what they have done, they have separated these two. So application layer is your core component, basically, your kernel component, which will take care of processing the data using logic. So what data you submit, then what to do with that data, how, what business logic to be applied onto that, and then this application layer does the communication with both the layers. So let's say a request comes here with the data. Let's say somebody puts an order. Okay, this is the order number, this is the quantity, this is the material, or whatever, all those things. It is passed on to the application layer, and then application layer will do read and write to the database. So now the database is a separate server. You can have multiple available databases. You can choose from what database to deploy, because your application layer is now a separate layer. So your application is where all the logic is, and database is a separate. So when you have options to choose from multiple available vendors, IBM, Oracle, anything you can choose as a data. SAP has their own database. So you can choose which database to deploy, and application layer sends the read and write request to database. So after the processing is done with whatever order is submitted, basically application layer decides, okay, these 5 tables, put this data into these 5 tables. And when they want to show the data back, they will pull that data from those 5 tables, do the processing here, and then send that process data back to the presentation layer for user to see. Yeah, I need to see the order number 1, 2, 3, 4. So from database, it is fetch. Let's say 5, 6 tables are there where the order data is stored, and then it is come here. The application layer process the data and send it back to the presentation layer for displaying purpose. So this is 3-tier architecture, and the 3-tier architecture, basically with 3-tier architecture, the problem with legacy R2 structure, basically they were solved. They have a better performance, better hardware is available, faster processing, secure communication, and all those things basically. Okay, so presentation contents capable of providing a graphical interface, the GUI, web browser, or anything. Also the client, it is also known as client layer. Okay. It is where the user interaction happens, and it is where the GUI is. Okay, desktop, mobile phone, laptop, anything. Okay. Application server, as we discussed, where multiple CPUs, vast amount of RAM that is deployed onto a server. They are known as kernel layer or basis layer, where all the application programs are executed. Okay, and they do the communication between both the layers. Okay, and they will basically do the load management. So if 10 people are trying to connect to your application, the application can put them on hold. They can do the dispatching, which item to pick first, and which item to execute and send the result back. So in R2, it was not there. In R3, they have the dispatcher, which will do the dispatching. You can have multiple application layers. So improve the performance. Okay. So one application layer can be your master application layer where all the requests will come, where your dispatcher is, and then it can dispatch the work to multiple other applications. Like, okay, you have less load, you process this 10 requests. So that kind of smart logic comes into picture, where you have multiple applications, and then the application will connect to database and then do the read and write. Okay. So database server is it has a large storage, basically fast and large hard drives. That is where the data will be stored, and it does not contain any business logic. So database does not know um, what is the core logic that SAP has, right? It has just the data is sitting into database. Okay. And application layer is doing all the processing of data. Okay. And Oracle, Microsoft, IBM, Siebel, Sybase, all those databases were available to connect in R3. So this is another diagram, like multiple PCs trying to connect to application server. There can be multiple application layers, and those application layer can connect to a database layer. So the load management, the message queuing, all those things comes into picture, and you have the better performance. And basically the previous problems are solved. Any questions here till now? So we can move to the client concept. Okay, I'll take that as no. Fine. So what is a client? So anyone would like to share their experience with client in the sense SAP client, the three digit numbers that you might be using? Yeah, anyone would like to share their experience here? Okay, guys, please make this interactive. It will be good learning for everyone in that case. Okay, fine. So let me go ahead. What is a client? So client is a logical person. So just some time back we have seen there are multiple applications. So that is all hardware structure. In terms of hardware, you can have 4 applications, 3 applications available, but you have one database. In one database, let's say you need a logical separation. You want you have, let's say, 5 different companies that you want to run. Okay, let's say your company is operating in 5 multiple areas. Like you have a business of let's say mobile phone development. Okay, you are developing the phones. That is your one business. You have a second business, same organization. You have a second business where you do the marketing of phones, and that is a separate entity. Third one is where you do when you do let's say you are creating some paints, for example. You are into the paint business. You are into the pharmaceutical business. You are supplying the materials, raw materials, likewise. So although it is a one company, but it has multiple businesses, and then each business will have to cope up with their own transactions, right? So they will have their financial data, they will have their employees. So employee who is working at pharmaceutical plant, it has got nothing to do at what the technical company is doing, what mobile phone company is doing. Although it is a one company, and they just don't want to have multiple servers for multiple businesses. It is too much of a IT infrastructure to deploy, and maintenance increases. Like you have 5 different servers for 5 businesses, then you have to deal with 5 different IT teams. So the SAP has a solution to this. They have a logical portion. So you can have one SAP system, and you can create your multiple clients into that. So when a client is created, some data in client 100 is a different data from 150. So let's say the case we discuss, we have 5 businesses, and let's say my mobile phone business has 100 employees, only 100 people building the phones and distributing them. And the second business, which is paint business, because there are so many workers, so many factories involved. It has 1,000 users. Okay, so when you decide to split your one SAP system into logical portions, you can have a client 100 where you say, okay, this client is dedicated to phones company. Client 150, it is dedicated to my paint business, to my pharmaceutical business. Client 200 is for another business. And what happens, whatever data is created, like those 100 users for mobile phone, they basically reside in this client. They cannot even log in into 150 client because their user is, the user master is a client dependent field. So if you have to get into these three clients, you need to be created in all three. So that is how they will basically do a logical portioning. So from business standpoint, a client can be interpreted as a logical group of companies. So basically you can distribute or have a logical boundary, although it is residing in same database, but there is a logical boundary into that. So one client data cannot be accessed by another client data, and you basically divide your businesses or you divide your data logically. So then the customizing, whatever configuration you do, it is basically client dependent. So in one client you can do all the your company specific configuration. Second client have a different configuration, and whatever ABAP development you do, you can do it can be performed in client or it can be performed in system wide. So client dependent and independent data. So we'll discuss on that. What are the client dependent and independent? So client dependent is basically where a particular data, like we discuss users. So if I create a user in 100 client, it does not automatically have authorization or permission to go into 200. I will have to create the same user in 200 because that is a client dependent. But let's say we have a parameter, the timeout, SAP timeout. How many times you will wait for user to enter something? If let's say it is set to the 30 minutes. So if 30 minutes the user is not doing any transaction, automatically user will receive a message that you have been kicked out of system basically because you did not do anything. So that need not to be configured in all the client. Like 100 you go and do the same configuration, 200 you go and set that thing to 30 minutes, 300 you go and do. So that parameter can be system wide. So that is called as client independent. So basically all your tables or anything, if it has a mandate, as a field, so that becomes a client dependent data. Okay. So in client dependent, you can have your ABAP variants, you can have user master, you can have number range, that is all client, and you can have multiple configuration, that is client dependent. And in client independent will basically your data dictionary objects, table, view, ABAP source code, screen, any system level configurations, they can be client independent data. Yeah. So if mandate is a key in your table, so that table is client dependent. Like if you see, for example, USR02, you will see mandate as a table field and it will say 100 as your client number. So if a user exists there with 100 entry, so he can log in into the client 100. Okay. And if it is not there, I mean any other table, like any basis related table or any configuration related parameters, those are not client dependent. So if you make a change, like for example timeout, so if you make 30 minutes as timeout, so any client, any user, 30 minutes he will timeout. You don't need to do the same thing in all the clients. So here they are giving example, TSTC is a client independent. So TSTC is basically where you hold all your transactions. Okay. So if you create a transaction in one client, automatically that code is available in all other clients. So if I create a, let's say Z underscore SU53, where it is a guided step to show you how to capture SU53T code. Okay. So if it is created in 100, automatically it is available in 200 because that is a client independent. But USR01 or USR02 is a client dependent. So if you create a user in one client, it is not automatically available in second client. Okay. SAP delivered clients. So SAP basically delivered 3 clients, 000, 001 and 066. Okay, so 000 has a special functions. It is extended functionality during upgrade. So when you want to do a technical upgrade to your SAP system, 000 client is used by basis. Okay, 001 is copy of 000, and it is basically used for creating a new customizing client. So when let's say your client 100 or any client that you might see in your system, so these three clients are basically managed by basis team. Even security team does not need to get into these clients, but when they deploy the system at first time, they will take copy of 001. They will consider this as a golden client, and they will basically copy it from here and give you any new client. So if another business says, okay, I want my separate client, they will do 001, they will copy it from here and they will give them, okay, here is your new client, let's say 300 for example, and then you can do all your configurations in 300. So system wise settings or system wise configuration or a client even independent configuration is copied from 001, and you have the new client, and then you basically customize that based on the business requirement. And client 066 is used by SAP for system monitoring purpose, operational system monitoring. So it is called as early watch service to provide the performance recommendation. So SAP can connect to this 066 client and get the performance information of your SAP system. Okay, pretty much same. Okay, so any questions till now? So landscape. So now we discuss on the 2-tier, 3-tier architecture. But then a landscape is a different thing. A landscape is it can be 3 system landscape or more. But the absolute less is 3 system landscape is recommended. This is the SAP recommended. And what do we mean by landscape is we have basically the same server, same SAP server, everything same. Data wise it can be different, but configuration wise the exact same systems. And whatever changes you want to do, you will basically do that changes in a development client. So let's say you want to develop a new transaction. Okay, so nobody will directly go and do such thing in production, because if anything goes wrong, all your actual business is impacted. Because in production basically your live data is there, the business is doing their transactions, and if something goes wrong here, it has a financial impact. So in 3 system landscape, basically there is a development server where you go and do the development, perform configuration, and then transport that configuration. So in SAP we don't need to manually do each and everything here. There are some SAP products where you will have to manually deploy the changes. But in speaking of GRC and our core ECC system or S4 system, you can transport the things. Okay, so when you let's say create a new report, or when you do some configuration, like in case of GRC for example, you tweak a parameter how your GRC will behave, and then you will basically do that in development system. Okay, and then transport that change to quality, and in quality system basically you will have subset or whatever. Whenever you refresh the data from production, you will have that data. So quality system will have some business data available, so that you can perform the testing of the changes that you did, how they will behave in production system. Is it working as expected? Is it having any negative performance impact, or is it disturbing any existing functionality? All those kind of testing can happen in quality system. So once you do the quality check, once you assure that whatever changes you are doing is not negatively impacting the system, then you can transport that changes into production. So this is called 3 system landscape. And then there might be organizations which has even more than this. So if they are doing some project, they can have a pre-production if they really want to see. So quality system, let's say it is not that frequently refreshed, but they can have another system in between, which can be a pre-production system. So where you have more frequent refreshes, you have more business data, and you want, let's say, a business team to do some testing. So quality is, let's say, all the IT team. So IT team did the development work. then IT team or some business people are testing here. But if you go in pre-production, you want more business people to be involved, you can have another system, and then that becomes 4 system landscape. Even before development, you can have if you're running some projects parallelly in the support landscape, so you can have another development system where your transport path, whatever you send from development, you need to retrofit that to another development system. Okay, because that is where you are doing new set of development, another development parallelly. A project is happening, like let's say this is your company 100 running, and you are trying to onboard another business. You are doing some role development in another development system for additional functionality. You're not doing it here, you have another development system. So whatever changes you do here, you will have to retrofit, keep it in sync with that development system. So one day the changes from this development will also go to quality and go to production. Okay, so 3 system is recommended, and based on the requirement, it can be more. It can be 4 system, 5 system landscape as well. And development, basically each project will have a sandbox. Okay, so I think we have a slide for that. Let me move ahead. Yeah, so this is three landscape architecture. You have a development server, and your development itself is a three tier. So you will have a database for development. Let's say this is, let's say, DS1. Let's call it development server 1. So this is your DS1 system, this is your QS1 system, and this is your PS1 system. And all these 3 systems will have their own presentation layer, application layer, and their database layer. So you can send the transport from development to quality, quality to production. Okay. Yeah. Any questions here? I think we have one more architecture slide to cover on S4 side. We'll take that. Okay. So next subtopic is S4HANA architecture. So we discussed in last session, we discussed in last topic, we discussed what is 3-tier architecture and what is the 3 landscape architecture. Now we will look at the S4HANA. Okay, what is the S4HANA architecture? So again, I would encourage you guys to read through this disclaimer quickly. So do not share this content. This is purely for training purpose, and do not reproduce or send this to anyone. So agenda for this topic is what is S4HANA, S4HANA architecture, features of S4HANA, and S4HANA specialty. So has anyone worked on S4HANA system? Anyone's project has S4HANA system?
SJ.
Okay, Srisha. Anyone else? Fine. So S4HANA is basically an in-house data platform for SAP. So in I think in 2010, SAP came up with the HANA database. Okay. So earlier, like if you are on ECC, so the HANA is not a mandatory database. You can still choose from any other providers like IBM, Oracle, Sybase. You can choose their database to connect with your ECC system. Okay. But with S4HANA, the in-house database, that is SAP HANA, is a mandatory database, and it has benefits. It has a wider benefits. That's why they have chose with S4 Business Suite 4. The HANA database is a mandatory database. Okay, there is no other options to go ahead with multiple databases this time, and it is basically a relational database providing support to business intelligence. So whatever capabilities SAP has, new capabilities or new simplified finance and whatever enhanced models that SAP has implemented or created with the S4, they work absolutely based on HANA database. So there are some Fury apps or some functionality that you can still implement on non-HANA database, but the benefit of having it on HANA is really really great. And S4 HANA is their what I can call is future path. So any client or in like your projects that you're working, not today, but maybe after a couple of years, one day they will have to move to S4 HANA. Or once the SAP is closing the support to the ECC and R3 and any other, like right now ECC is in support. So when they basically close the support for ECC, all the clients will have to move to S4 HANA. Okay, so that is the journey that everyone will have to take, right? Okay, so as for an architecture, as we discussed, the database is now SAP HANA DB. Okay, so all the SAP HANA engine, real-time replication services, data services. So these are core, basically the hardware part and the services that are available in HANA, which will take care of any failure, any performance, and all those technical, basically how the database is managed. So those services are deployed in SAP HANA server. And on the business or application side, basically the application is integrated with S4 HANA, and then they have provided you with the Fury apps. Okay, so you can connect with the SAP GUI, or you can use a Fury, or you can use the web browser to connect to basically the application, and application is basically connecting to SAP HANA DB. Okay, so the business suite that is deployed, it works very well with HANA database, and that is the mandatory part. So what is basically the S4 HANA? S4 HANA is the next generation business suite offered by SAP. Okay, it combines power of in-memory database. So anyone know what is the in-memory database? This is very important. Shirisha, would you like to take this? So why SAP HANA is, I would say, famous, or why it is, why take all that trouble to just make sure SAP HANA is used and no other database is used? Like in R3, you have all the database multiple available options, and why in S4 only SAP HANA you make it mandatory? Okay, so
It reduces the minimal response time.
yeah, so it has a better, it has very good performance. That is one factor. So the way SAP HANA database is designed, okay, so
and it keeps the data in main memory instead of interacting with hard disk.
Yeah, correct. So what happens with the traditional database, like any database? So what happens with any database? Let's say this is your database, okay, and you have two kind of memories here. Let's say you have a RAM, okay, and you have a, let's say, hard disk. You have physical disks, okay, like this, okay. So this is your RAM, let's say, and this is your disks, hard disk. Okay, so as a SAP application, what happens? Whatever frequent data, like let's say somebody put a query, show me the orders of last 1 month. So what SAP will have to do? They will have to go into the database disk hard drive, because this is where all the data will be. They will pull that data and they will put basically that data into RAM, and from RAM it will be sent to user GUI, where he will be able to see the data. Okay, so this is the traditional database. With SAP HANA, what they have done, they have basically all the things are kept in RAM. Okay, so this RAM, it has all the data that is required, and there is really absolute less requirement to fetch this data from here. So previously, what they will have to do, they will have to fetch the data from here. Okay, fetch the data from here. Now, what they are going to do with SAP HANA, they are going to fetch the data from RAM. and RAM is way faster than disk. So whenever you put a query, whenever you want to, let's say, access your transaction data, query in the sense not SQL query, okay, when you go and try to see your order. So let's say the response time previously was, let's say, 100 milliseconds. Now it is 5 milliseconds. And we might not see that impact like with this one transaction. But if you try to run the complex logic or complex transactions, like what product was most sell in last year, same month. So now this kind of query or this kind of analytics needs to scan through the last year's data, go through all the orders, and give you the extract. Okay, this is the highest selling product in last month, right? So for that kind of queries, previous architecture earlier, what used to happen? So this was our ECC system, okay, and this was our BW system previously, okay. And what ECC will do, will send this data here as a replication, okay. So we all know this, whoever worked on this thing, BW security or BI security, let's say, they know, right? So what SAP does here, you will do all the transactions, okay. You don't want to disturb your system performance. Somebody going and putting this query, show me the which product was sold last year, highest selling product, and all those things. So if you try to run this, it is going to stop your right transaction. Right transaction means somebody putting their sales data, somebody capturing financial transactions, somebody doing user creation, um, somebody doing any other business transaction. If somebody is running this kind of heavy report here, it is going to take up a lot of resources. It is going to take up the work process that are available. It is going to take up it is going to impact database, because he is going to connect to database and fetch that heavy data. So what basically they used to do, they will replicate your data. So let's say the data till last midnight, okay, let's say till 12 a.m. okay, all the data that is available here every day 12 a.m. all this data is copied into BI, let's say here. And the query that we are discussing, okay, which is the highest selling product, it not run here, now it is running here. So when I'm running this query, this is a separate server, this is a separate SAP system, and I use resources that are available here. And this system is purely for doing the live business transactions. So by doing so, the performance of this system is not impacted. I have a separate system. And when this load is happening, when they are sending data from here to here, they are basically here, the data is normalized data. So normalized data, if you know, normalized data is basically, for example, my user creation, when I create a user, I basically update 5 tables. I have address data in some other table. I have user to role assignment in some other table. I have user lock information, last logon information in USR02. Okay, I have another table for any other user related things. Okay, address data and so and so. So when a SU01 is done here, it basically update 5 table. Okay. Now, when they want to load this data here as a history, okay, so they are not going to load 5 tables. They will, because here you need to do transaction. That is why it is indexing and all those things. Here you are not doing transaction. Here you are running the queries. So this database is called as OLTP, Online Transactional Processing Database, and this is called as OLAP, Analytical Processing. This is transactional processing. You want to do more and more transaction, create user, create user, create user. Don't stop. I don't want a performance impact. Creating a user should be fast. Here you are not doing a transaction. Here you are finding, okay, who created that user, how many users created, when user logged in. So from this 5 table, they will do denormalization, and BI team will do all this. Like we are just taking SU01 example, but this will be the business tables actually. And they will let's say they decide, no, I want to load this user master as only one table. Okay, only one table. So when I want to do a query, I have all the data sitting here in one table. Here 5 table, for write performance, here one table for read performance. Okay, this is the traditional structure. With SAP HANA, what they did, this is only one system. Okay, in one system you have in one system you have both advantage. You can have speed of OLTP as well as you can do the analytic. So how they are doing? So we discussed they have moved things into RAM. So with RAM there is a high speed, there is high performance. So everything is in RAM now. Okay, and they will only connect to the database to transfer these contents back, and whatever is accessed frequently, everything is loaded into RAM. So whole like kind of your measure of your tables, measure of your data stays into RAM, and then it is very fast. You write here and you read from here very fast. So that is why these both the capabilities are available in S4HANA. You can put complex queries and get the results. Like for example, if you run the same query in ECC, let's say it takes 1 hour to run that query and give you the result. If you run the same query in S4HANA, it gives you in 2 minutes, 1 minute. That much of the performance impact you will see. Like while executing SU01, you might not see the impact. Okay, in ECC also I used to create user, S4 also I create user, and I don't see any big improvement as such. But when you see the business transactions, that is where you will understand, okay, when you do some complex processing here, it takes 1 hour, 1 day as well, and here it takes minutes or seconds. That fast it is. Okay, and in S4HANA, another thing they have come up with the row store and column store tables. So I don't want to go too much detail here, but if you can go and Google around later, okay, how they are achieving this high performance. So you can go and Google around in S4HANA. Maybe we will cover it later again when we are discussing on HANA database. That time we will cover. But basically they are using row store capabilities, and then because of that all these analytics become very easy. So maybe we'll discuss later when we are more closer to HANA sessions. We'll again touch this point, what is a row store and what is a column store. But with that, the SAP HANA architecture, this system becomes very faster, very faster. And because of that new functionalities that they are deploying, some transactions which are done in ECC might not be available in S4. Okay, so if somebody has worked on the conversion project, you might know the user master or vendor master, it was done here separately, and now those transactions are no more available. So you will have to use the Fury apps to do that transaction because they are not aligned to target architecture. Here they were updating, let's say, the infrastructure wise they were touching some row store tables because everything was row store here, and here those tables are converted into column store. So that is why it is no more matching with the target architecture. In future they are going to continue with S4HANA and more releases there. So then there are some transactions which are no more available here, and then there are mandatory Fury apps. There are some transactions which are let's say here let's say SE16 was there, let's say, and here they have new SE16H for HANA, let's say. So likewise, you will see old transaction is replaced with the new transaction, and likewise. Okay. So in a nutshell, the S4 HANA is a in-house and very fast database, and that is the target architecture or future architecture that they are going to follow. And it is in-memory computing capabilities. That is why it is real-time data processing and analytics. Both the things are possible here. Okay, so like we discussed, in-memory database. So the in-memory computational engine is there, and most of the data is available here, and that is why it is from RAM it is retrieved and written faster, and that is why analytics and faster data access and real-time processing is possible in S4HANA. Okay. So with S4HANA, I mean, the technically we discuss how they are making it faster, but they have simplified the modules. Okay, So they have simplified finance and they have enhanced, upgraded the modules. They have, like we discussed, they have some functionalities, they have discontinued them because they don't meet the target architecture. Some new transactions they have created, and some Fury apps they have created, the mandatory Fury apps. So you don't have a transaction for that functionality. You must do that functionality with Fury. So that is how they are moving towards the simplified data model. Okay. It eliminates the redundant data like tables, aggregates, and that is how they are making it faster and faster. Okay, single source of truth. So with S4HANA, like the diagram I draw, it was for BW, but then you have your MDG, your master data sits in a different system, and you have multiple systems. So your master data is another system. So they are trying to reduce the multiple systems, and they are bringing that functionalities to a single source of truth. So like we said, you no more create a customer or vendor master data separately. It is done with Fury app, and it is system wide. So you have one single source of truth. Okay, all your business data is stored here, and it is available for real-time processing, and reconciliation and replication across different modules is happening within the S4. So that is how it becomes more usable and more faster, and bringing in more functionalities. So it's not that S4HANA is just faster. It is, the modules are more advanced. It has additional functionalities, and it is like real value to the business. That is why SAP is like they are going to make it compulsory later. Maybe they extended 2 times the ECC support timeline, but maybe in future when the ECC support is closed, everyone will have to move to S4HANA. Okay, and that is a big journey in a way. So some of you might get that opportunity to work on your respective clients to convert from their ECC system to S4 system. Okay, fine. So all these are technical benefits: embedded analytics and simplified modules like STFI. Now we have assets management, finance, manufacturing. So these are integrated with one another, and there have been smart enhancements to how those modules will work with each other. And that is how the S4HANA is the future of SAP. Right? Okay. Any questions here? Anyone?
Hi, Jay. Subhash here.
Yes.
So in the S4HANA, how are the roles defined? Like, is it based on OData service and app like, or something different?
So, Subhash, there are two things. The user management, like from security side, if we talk, there are no huge differences. We will still create the user and role with SU01 and PFCG. But additionally, like Fury, there are mandatory Fury apps. Okay, or let's remove the mandatory word. Even previously in ECC also we have Fury. So when you want to grant the access to Fury, you will use that services. Okay, OData services, or you will basically use that IWSV, IWSG, and we will talk on that. We have the Fury session as well. So you will have to create you will have to add the catalogs to the role. If you are
Catalog
using
groups.
Yeah, if you are using group, then group also. If you are moving to the latest Fury 3.0 where page and space is there, so I will show you that as well. So you in that case groups are not needed, then you can use the spaces. So then you add the catalog, you add the group or space based on what approach you are taking, and you use the transactions. And basically the authorization part of PFCD stays the same. One change for us is I think if you guys have created business partners, okay, I think it is needed in CRM system or solution manager. We have to create the business partners, but in S4 the BP creation or the business partner creation is basically a Fury app now. And previously we used to, like, I create, let's say Subhash, I have a Subhash as my user. Okay, and this is my SU01 user, and I have a BP number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 for Subhash. In ECC, you can still go and remove this and maybe make another BP for Subhash. Okay, create another BP number. But in S4 with target architecture, They don't have that functionality to create it manually. So you will have to go to maintain employees Fury app, I think. Okay, maintain employee Fury app, and here once you go and you create a BP for Subhash, that is a full and final BP.
So
This
means
is one.
latter we can't change.
No, you cannot change. This is one change from security end, from security side. And this business partner creation, it can be security task, it can be business task. Okay, it depends like how the project designs. But this is a Fury app maintain employee. Okay, this is a Fury app maintain employee. This is where you do the BP. But from security side, if we talk purely on security end, there is no big difference. Yeah, T codes might change, Fury apps might change. So your role design will change. When you are moving from ECC to S4, there are three kind of categories. Okay, category number 1, T code gone. Okay, no more available. Category 2 is T code replaced. Okay, example SE16 was replaced, let's say SE16N. Okay, sorry, SE16H. Just giving a random example. Okay, don't consider this is the actual data. And number 3, yeah, number 3 is auth updated. Okay, so T code gone, it is no more available. There is another subcategory here. Okay, either it is totally gone or a Fury app is come. Okay, so like BP.
But still T codes you can convert as GUI apps, right? It is for
no. Let me finish this. Maybe it will answer. So BP, for example. So BP is a category. This is no more available, and you use the Fury app maintain employee. Okay. Fine. Okay. Second category is, let's say, a T code. Let me say XYZ was a T code. Okay, and it is not available. Nothing. This is gone. No T code, no Fury app. You cannot do this. Full stop. This is functionality. This is change number 1. Change number 2, T code is replaced. So you have enhanced new T code. Fine, all good. So what you will have to do, you will have to find out the roles where you have SE16. You have to connect to the respective departments. Say this is gone. This is new T code. Make yourself familiarized with this T code, how to use SE16H, and give your approval. We will remove SE16. We will add SE16H. Okay. In this case, you will have to go and tell them this is gone. Okay, you are basically the people who are involved in the project from business side. Yeah, they will also know. But yeah, basically you will say no, this is no more available. Either you make a Fury app or just remove that functionality. This is not available, no more. This is gone. And the third thing is technical upgrade. So where, let's say SU01, for example. Okay, SU01, let's say previously has S_user_GRP, let's say. This was a authorization object, and let's say it was mandatory in ECC. Now S4 says it is optional. This is also a change. It can be other way around, like it was optional before. Now SAP has in S4 it is a mandatory. So if it was optional, your role might not have S_user_GRP for this transaction. But now it is mandatory, so you will have to incorporate that into your role. Another kind of change is default values. Firstly, SAP did not give any no defaults. Now in S4, they give default. So you will have to analyze this. It can be other way around. Previously, they used to give a default value like S_user_GRP, SU01, I give 01, 02, 03 as a default value. And now they in S4 they make it okay. I want 01, 02, 03 and F4 additional for search. If you go somewhere and try to search user, it will check if you have 03 or not, if you have F4 or not. F4 is basically search. So now F4 is a new activity that they came into picture. So this is how these are the basically high level security categories where you will have to work on with the business, work on with the stakeholders to put the security side changes from ECC to S4. This will be important. This will be key. And main thing will be SU25, where SU25, where all these things will be applicable. So what is happening? These all changes, they will be available here in SU25. You will be able to see which roles are impacted, which T codes are replaced, which T codes are gone, where SAP is giving you changes into the default values or authorization object. Firstly it was there, now it is not there, or it was there before, now it is no more recommended, likewise. Okay, so this is a main big exercise when you are making that journey to move from ECC to S4. And if you are doing a fresh implementation, then it is very easy. In that case, if it is a greenfield fresh implementation, then what happens at business level also, they will sit back and they will design, okay, how, what will be my future business process. And if you are doing a technical upgrade, like you are moving the just changing the system, like let's say we are on the Teams, okay, we are comfortable here, and tomorrow Microsoft says no, Team is no more applicable, there is another Team 2 software, you have to move there. Then what will do? Okay, what I need to do, I need to talk to participants, these are my basic functionalities, I need to understand what is staying. If this button, mic button, is gone from tomorrow, what button they have, and I will have to make use of that button. I'm not using new functionality of Team 2 here. Okay, in this journey, we are nowhere talking that okay, these are additional reports, these are additional functionalities. We are just talking, okay, how you do business. Now this is the absolute necessary way to do your business in S4. That is a technical upgrade, that is called as brownfield. And in greenfield, basically you will have a new S4 system and you might sit together and do a fresh design. Okay, these are the functionalities that we will use, and so and so. And then in that case, you don't have this headache. Basically, they will tell you this Fury app, due to this T course, will be part of this role, and likewise you do the fresh implementation. Okay. Did I answer you, Subhash?
Yeah, yes, yeah. Fine. Thank you.
Oh, sure.
One question, Jay. Do we have any what happens to the custom transactions? Any idea on that? If we are moving and doing a conversion?
Yeah. So custom transactions, what will happen basically? Since they are not SAP delivered, you won't see them in any of this category.
Yeah.
Yeah, but again, when development team will run their code, the compatibility check, that time the way that program is written, okay, the way the tables that he's accessing, if that table is no more available, so it will tell you this T code needs changes, and that change is not at T code level. Basically, the way the T code is written. So
Okay.
that will fall under development work, where all the custom code, they will have to go through the checks and make sure they are still aligned with the target architecture. And if any changes, they will have to remediate. But since it is not SAP delivered, so it doesn't fall in any of this category. So SAP is not going to tell you the default object, default values, or any new replacement. But yeah, you have to run through that functionality, the tools that SAP delivers, to check if that is matching the target architecture.
Yeah. Okay.
Good question.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other question? Okay, so with this, what all we covered? If we go here, so we covered till these topics. Okay, and okay, so SAP landscape. Please go to the disclaimer. Okay, agenda for this module: introduction, system landscape, 3-tier architecture, and components. So we discussed this in the last module as well. So now just a little bit clarification. So landscape and that R2 and R3, that is a two different terminology. So R2, R3 is how that 3 tiers basically where they reside, whether they reside on 2 servers or 3 servers. And landscape is how many such systems you are putting in a transport path. Okay, so as we discussed, the 3 system landscape is SAP recommended minimum 3 system, and you can have more based on the project requirement. So 3 system will consist of a development, quality assurance, QAS, and a production. Okay. So SAP architecture is a technology framework of SAP. It can change with the time. So like we were discussing, from ECC to S4, it was a big jump. Okay, so underlying technology like HANA technology is changed. Table structures are changed. Any their DDIC libraries or the way functional modules or bodies, BAPIs, all those things like SAP, the way SAP delivered their product, they might have changed. Okay, and with every upgrade or every release, there might be some changes. Okay, not every release is a major release from security perspective, because we don't see that from smaller releases. T codes are gone or such things, but yeah, when it is a big jump, it can happen. Okay, so technology can change, underlying structure, the way SAP has delivered the product, it can change. Okay, so ECC 6.0 to the recent one S4, the architecture can change, but the landscape stays as it is. So what our landscape is, from development to quality, quality to production. Okay, and this is minimum 3-tier landscape, which is SAP recommended. Okay, so the changes that are done in dev, they are sent to quality. From quality, when testing is fine, they are sent to production. So sandbox. So you might see a sandbox system in your projects, which is isolated one, which is there and it is not part of any transport path. Okay, so you do some configuration or some testing or some proof of concept in sandbox, and it is never transported. It is just there to see whether this thing works fine, it is working as expected or not. Okay, so when a project is implemented, initial stages, you will see a sandbox server is created, and you will do all the customization, or rather you will see all, let's say tomorrow SAP release a security note or something like in our space there is a note to improve how SU01 works, let's say. So what is usually done, the project team will try to implement that note in a sandbox system. They are not going to transport it there, because see, if you do it in development, the development, if you transport, it is going to capture in development. It will be part of a transport, and then you have to deal with the transport. But sandbox is a separate server. So there is no transport path. It is a standalone system where you can do all your configuration and see how the system is behaving. Okay, with that. And with this 3 system landscape, the recommended approach is right here. So this is your dev, this is your quality, this is your production. Okay, so let's talk of security term. Okay, so our PFCG role. Okay, so my role 1. Okay, here is also that role 1 when it is transported, and here will be also role 1, the production version. Okay, so the recommendation is whatever T codes and authorizations that are available in role 1, they should be same across the landscape. And what could be the reason for that? Anyone would like to tell? What will be what will go wrong if they are different? Anyone? What could be a negative impact? Yes.
So suppose if role versions are different in development than the production, then suppose if in addition we are going to add any additional functionality, then that time that changes will also get transferred, or like, so there might be a change in the what we can say, change in the current process, or there might be some additional access, or due to that there might be some access which are currently available that might be we will lose.
Correct. That is correct one. So negative impact on changes. So like let's say role one, I have a request to add XYZ transaction. Okay, I started here and then somebody says, oh no, we don't need that. Leave it, drop it. So if I still keep that XYZ here, okay, it is not here, it is not here. And one day when somebody has touched this role again for making any changes, this XYZ T code will go here and will go here. Okay, so unintentionally you are opening more access. Same way negatively, if you are removing, somebody says remove this T code and then they said no, it is still needed. But if it is removed from here and when you transport, it will be gone from here, and then it can have a negative impact on production. So something that you don't know. If people were extensively using, it can be a save one issue as well. If it was a highly used transaction, and if you made any changes like authorization object was removed by mistake or because of some any other change, or you added something and then it went into production not as a desired change, it might add SOD risk, right? So there is a negative impact on the system. So the approach is, the recommended approach is you should have these three roles in sync. And now we are talking of another box, which is a sandbox here. So again, sandbox also has role one. Okay, but nobody is going to transport this role one to here. So if tomorrow, let's say, we are trying to implement some new functionality, like let's say how the time management will work. Let's say tomorrow we decide, okay, let me see, we are trying to bring in the timesheet into the system. Till now we don't have a timesheet functionality. We are not using SAP timesheets. Now I want to bring in. So they do the configuration here, and for timesheet, let's say they ask us to add cat2, cat3, some T codes to role. So we updated the role, and then they said no, this is not of use, leave it. So in that case, that there is less harm because this role one is not going to be transported to any of the system. But yeah, if they say, yeah, okay, this looks good, let's implement this functionality, then they will do the same. They will, and us, we will do the same thing in role one. We will add the transaction. We are not going to download, upload role or transport role from here to here. Okay. So that is why sandbox. So sandbox is this kind of system. You initial stage of your project, you will do the customization, configuration, apply some note and see how do the POC, proof of concept, if that thing is working or not. That is where sandbox will be. Development server is, as we discussed, development is where you finalize, yeah, I want to do this development. And then whatever you do, there are two type of requests. Either it will be a workbench request or it will be a customizing request. So it will be captured in respective request, like our role change, etc. It will be a customizing request. And if you are doing and customizing request is client dependent. Okay, and workbench request is where you will send that request, and workbench is where your development objects are. So from security perspective, we have our SU24 changes or workbench changes. So if you are making any changes to SU24 T code, they will be captured in workbench and they will be transported along, right? So those two kind of changes and two kind of request we have, transport request. And production server, as you know, this is the final and most refined stage where the actual work is done. So either if you are working on an implementation project, so when you want to go live, let's say few days before that, this server is built. Okay, the production server is built, and that server is that system is very, very important because that is where the actual business data is going to be loaded. So what happens when the, let's say in a project phase, again we have the session on project phases as well, but when you have, let's say the business is using some other system, they are not on SAP, but they are using let's say Microsoft ERP currently, and they want to go ahead and they want to migrate to SAP. Then this project, let's say it is happening from a year, you build a sandbox, from sandbox you did, okay, I'm going to do all those things, you build a development, then you move your project to testing phase, you did all the testing, and then now you are near go live. So you build this production system, and whenever the go live is planned, the existing business will be stopped. They won't do any order or they won't do any business processing They won't process even a stock movement or anything. And all those things like their open order or supplier ko kuch material send, whatever send they have sent something they have to yet to receive. They have sent vendor some order, send me 100 phones, and they are yet expecting the phone delivery. So all those things are closed, and then that data is converted and send it to this production system. So from Microsoft ERP, data is extracted, converted, and loaded to SAP. And once they receive now those 100 phones, they are not going to accept in Microsoft. They are going to accept in SAP. Yeah, I received 100 phone, and then SAP it will have, yeah, I have stock of 100 phone automatically. And likewise, movement of stock or anything, then that thing will happen here. So that is called as go live, and this server or this system is most critical. So from SOX perspective, okay, and not only from SOX perspective, even perspective from security perspective, like the real data. So let's say our social security numbers, okay. So everything is here in this system, actual data. And for testing purpose, what they can do when they are loading the data in quality, because quality is, you might know this, they refresh the data frequently from production to quality. This is the landscape. We'll talk here. So this has actual data. Okay, let me make it red. So this is my actual data. And when they want to copy it here, they will scramble it. So they will scramble this data. They will scramble this data. So let's say my phone number, for example, if it is here, if it is my phone number is like this, let's say J, let's say J, and my phone number is 1234. Here, when loading, they will make it K and they will make it 476, something like this. And then all this data is scrambled here. So tomorrow, when I am doing some functionality test, because quality, there will be contractor, there will be project team involved. They should not get real data. They should not see, okay, this person J, this is his social security number. No, they will have a scrambled data, they will have masked data, and likewise. So that is how the project is delivered or project phases work. You do the development here, you move the changes, you transport the changes to quality, you test the changes in quality, and once everything is fine, you get the approvals and move the changes to production. So, yeah, so here 3-tier architecture. We discussed this last time. Presentation layer, all your GUI work. Application layer, you have multiple applications, and in database you have database for that application system. Okay, so yeah, so I think we already covered this, what presentation layer and all the architecture done in last session. Database layer, database system, presentation layer consists of components, ABAP and Java stack. So it can be Fury app, it can be WebDyn Pro, it can be GUI transaction. So that is all different kind of presentation. Okay, on component side, I think this is a little bit what basis would cover in their trainings. So they have the message server. Okay, so message server is used to communicate basically to distributed dispatchers in a web system. So there is a dispatcher. Okay, if you will Google around, you will see the main component, the technical component wise, there is a dispatcher. So what dispatcher does, let's say there are 100 people trying to connect to the SAP system. The dispatcher will decide which application server will take that request, where to send that request. Okay, so message server will receive the messages, and then it will be sent to the dispatcher queue, and dispatcher queue will store the multiple work processes. So in a SAP system, let's say there are 15 dialog processes available. Let's say here we have the 15 processes available, 15 different processes I have available, 15. Okay, and then the request will come here. Let me remove this thing now. Okay, so I have 15 processes and I have a dispatcher here, my dispatcher here. So it will decide, and then I have another So yeah, so here I just draw this dispatcher. Okay, so here all these requests, different requests are coming here, and the dispatcher will decide which all applications. So like this is my one application, this is my another application server, this is my another application server. So the dispatcher centrally here, it will decide. So let's say everyone has 15 processes, 15 work processes available. Now when the first request comes, let's say this request is sent here. This request is sent here, let's say request one. Then second he sent here, third he sent here. Then here you will see, okay, now from 15, 14 are available, one is occupied. The same with all the servers. Then let's say this request is a huge request. It is taking time. This one is small, finish early. This one is also small. So likewise, all the requests will come here. Here and dispatcher will decide and dispatch the request to multiple application servers. And then this available 15 processes, they will basically, these processes will be used to complete the work. Okay. So when we log in, if you go and see SM04 or maybe SM51, you will see how many work processes, how many application servers are there, SM50, and you will see how many are occupied and how many are available. And there are some dedicated for background jobs. So some are dialog, some are background. And based on that, the dispatcher will decide where to send the request. Okay. So dispatcher queue will store all the multiple work processes and types. And then dispatcher is used to distribute the work to actual work processes. Okay. And then gateway is basically a communication between SAP and external systems. There will be gateways and there will be ABAP work processes. So this is the actual work processes will execute the steps. So like when we do SU01, we go into SAP system, we will see our name and we have occupied a work processes. Okay, another memory, another components is memory pipes. This is used to manage the communication. So I think this is more of a basis kind of, from security side, this is good to know, but this is more of a basis side details, how the actual SAP system takes the request and how it will distribute. Okay, so NQ server, it will handle the locks. Lock in the sense, let's say I go and I try to edit a user one. And then at the same time, as you know, second person tries to go, it will tell this user is already locked by person one. So that is how this NQ server will handle the locks. So only one person should access a particular write transaction data. And if you try to display the same user, it will allow you to display. Because display is not going to lock the data. But if somebody is going into SU01 and editing that user, so he might change his first name, last name, or change the roles. So that is why second person cannot go and lock the same person, cannot edit the same person because it is locked in NQ server. And if you go and do the SM12 transaction, you will see what all lock entries are created in system, who is locking which data. And Java dispatcher, so responsible client and via presentation. So it is going to get the request and it is forward to servers for processing. So I think it is looks like for more like for a Java or web info side requests. Okay. So any questions on the landscape part? I think here. Any question on any of the topic we discussed today? So we have 10 more minutes. We can take any questions. Anything else you want to discuss?
No, Jay, as of now.
Okay, let's see if we have any if there are any assessments on this topics we covered, modules, please go ahead and go through them. Try to finish, try to complete that. And if any labs are there. So I think for today there is no lab as such. But yeah, let's utilize this time to see how we can connect to the system. So maybe from tomorrow onwards, we can actually get into the system.
Okay. So
We'll meet up on tomorrow's session then. Okay.
Sure, sir. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for attending the session. I hope you all enjoyed it. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. Also feel free to ask your questions in the comment section below, and we will reply to them at the earliest.